In a small, hidden village surrounded by endless forests and foggy hills lived a boy named Elian. He wasn't a warrior or a wizard or anyone the world would call special. He was a woodcarver. Every day, Elian sat by his window, carving tiny wooden birds. Each bird was different, unique in shape, in detail, in soul. He painted their wings with care and carved their feathers with patience. But none of them ever flew. He lined them up on his shelf, gave them names, and whispered to them, "One day, I'll set you free." At night, he'd lie under the stars and say softly, "There's more out there for me, I just know it." But when the sun rose, fear crept in. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? What if they laugh at me? So, he stayed in his workshop, safe, hidden, silent. Days turned into months, and months into years. People in the village would pass by and smile kindly at him, but they whispered, "Such a talented boy. If only he had more confidence. Elian could do something great, if he just believed in himself." And Elian heard them, but their voices were just echoes of the ones already in his head. One day, something changed. An old traveler stopped by his workshop. She had kind eyes, weathered hands, and a backpack full of stories. She saw the birds on his shelf and said, "These birds were never meant to stay grounded." Elian replied, "They don't fly, they're just ornaments." The traveler smiled and handed him something strange, a broken compass. "Take it," she said. "You don't need perfect direction, you just need to move." Elian hesitated, but something inside him stirred a spark that had been waiting for years. So, the next morning, he packed a small bag, took one of his birds, and stepped beyond the edge of his village. He didn't know where he was going. The compass didn't point north, but his heart told him this was right. The journey was not easy. He walked through silent forests where shadows whispered doubts. He crossed rivers of regret, climbed hills of hesitation, and stumbled in valleys of shame. There were days he wanted to turn back, days he cried, days he shouted at the sky, "Why am I doing this?" But along the way, he met others. A singer who had lost her voice, not from illness, but from criticism. A knight who had lost his title, not in battle, but from fear of leading. A scholar who burned her own books, thinking she wasn't smart enough. Each of them carried broken dreams, and each of them taught him something. The singer sang again, quietly but boldly. The knight stood up for a small village. The scholar wrote again, just for herself. And Elian saw a pattern. They weren't fearless. They were brave anyway. One stormy night, Elian reached the highest cliff in the land. He stood alone, soaked by the rain, the wind howling like his own doubts. He pulled out his wooden bird. It was chipped from the journey, its paint faded, but it was still beautiful. He looked out into the fog and asked, "What if it falls?" And then he asked a better question, "What if it flies?" With trembling hands, he held the bird out and let go. It sailed into the air, not with perfect grace, not with magical wings, but it flew, not because it was flawless, but because it was finally free. That moment changed everything. Elian didn't become famous overnight. He didn't return to the village as a hero, but he came back to different. He walked with purpose. He carved new birds, not to keep, but to set free. He helped others build their own wings. People no longer whispered behind his back. They came to listen, to learn, to begin their journeys. And Elian would always say the same thing. You don't need to wait until you're ready. You just need to move. You see, the moral of Elian's story isn't about wooden birds or magical cliffs. It's about you. It's about the dreams you've shelved, the stories you've buried, the parts of yourself you've hidden because fear told you to. Fear will always be there. But courage is choosing to act anyway. So ask yourself, what bird are you holding on to? What dream have you left on the shelf? It's time to let go, to believe, to fly. If Elian's journey inspired you, Leave a comment with a dream you're ready to chase. Someone out there needs to hear it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here at Spark and Sustain, where stories don't just end happily, they begin with you.